The presenting sponsor for OnEducation is Classcraft. We're excited to announce Classcraft's new story mode, which makes it easy for educators to harness the power of stories. Episodes 1 and 2 of Season 1 are ready for you and your students to play today, and it's completely free. To learn more about Classcraft and the new story mode, simply visit classcraft.com/oneducation.
I've broken a sweat a couple times this week, and I'm like, damn, I have the Rona. Welcome to OnEducation, part of the On Podcast Media Network. My name is Mike Washburn.
And I'm Glen Urban. Friends, we have an awesome pod for you today. We're going to talk about how we're getting along in this new strange world we're all living in. And our guest this week is our good friend, educator, tech integrationist, and just an awesome person, Andy Leiser.
So we just stopped talking to Andy, and now I want to go play Butter Royale.
I know. He said he loves the Apple Arcade, which I haven't played in it, which now I'm interested. But he said specifically he likes playing a game called Butter Royale, which is a knockoff of Fortnite. But I guess there must be some butter characters.
You would think it's in the title. I was wondering if it's like a game where you spread butter on toast.
That's what I thought too.
We've seen other games that are dumb like that. I don't know.
Have you ever played, Mike, that game called I Am Bread or something?
No.
Bread?
No.
Okay, so let me tell you about how it sounds really dumb. Actually, even when I describe it to you, it's still going to sound really dumb, but it's actually super fun. You are a piece of toast, okay?
Yes, of course.
And you must maneuver your way with the controllers. The controllers are really difficult. You must maneuver your way from one location in the kitchen to another location without getting a bunch of grime on you. And you get extra points if you roll in like butter or like jelly or some different things like that, and you end up, or you could throw yourself in. What you're trying to do, I think, in most of them, is throw yourself into the toaster. And it sounds super stupid, hilarious. Just funny.
It sold like crazy. Yeah. Like people were playing it, and there's it made me think of all of these other ridiculous. I saw a video the other day of Dan TDM playing a game where he's a goose.
Oh, yes.
And the goose has to, steal stuff.
Yeah, Matt Farber plays that game. Oh gosh, I can't remember what it's actually called. But it might be something like I Am a Goose or Goose something, whatever it might be. I know what you're talking about, where he goes and steals things and he runs off. He's like a prankster goose or something.
Right. It's the most ridiculous game I've ever seen.
And it doesn't even look good, too. It's like the graphics are horrid, but it's just the play is funny. Yes, the gameplay.
Oh, boy. And so keeping on with our gaming theme, two things that have been happening. I want to get to yours in a second because yours is way better than mine. So just a reminder, we should make a note that Steve Isaacs and I have been streaming all week.
Yes.
On both Steve's channel and on the NASF channel, and playing lots of Minecraft, a little bit of Fortnite, and a bunch of other things. So at 9 a.m. Eastern and 2 p.m. Eastern, if you're bored, if you want to just escape this apocalyptic hellscape that we're all living in, then jump on Twitch and hang out with Steve and I and whoever we have with us. We're playing games and we're talking about them and stuff like that. The other cool news related to that is that starting on the 30th, so next week, we're shifting all of this streaming stuff to the new Participate Twitch stream.
Oh yeah,
at Inside Participate so it's twitch.tv/Inside Participate, and we would love for everyone who's listening to go pause the podcast right now. I'll give you a second. Okay, cool. And then go, hopefully you went to twitch.tv and you searched for Inside Participate and you follow us on Twitch so that you can watch us. And I'll tell you, without spilling all the beans, there is some, Glenn, I look like garbage right now because I am so tired.
He's overworked.
Because there is so much going on right now. that it's going to be awesome, so it's all worth it. But it has a lot to do with this Twitch stream and a bunch of other things related that are going to be launching, and we're going to talk more about it soon. And I'm super pumped to talk about it and get everyone on board and into it. We're going to be doing some really cool stuff. So speaking of cool stuff, you had like your I don't know, man, like I try to explain to people when I talk to people about how good you are at Hearthstone, that like you're really good, but like you're to the point now, like okay, so there are people who stream Hearthstone all the time and are YouTubers, famous YouTubers, whatever. You're good enough now that you're running into them in
crazy.
game and you're playing against them.
Yes.
Because that's how good you are. Like, you could be a Twitch, if you didn't have like a really important job and multiple children and, you know, a life, you could do this too, is my point, I guess. And so you played a famous YouTuber slash Twitch streamer, and I want you to talk about it because it was great.
It was there's this YouTube's really, he's really famous on Twitch, a Twitch streamer, and this is what he does as a professional career. He's actually so important as far as in the Hearthstone community that he is recognized and has a lot of videos associated. Anytime there's a new Hearthstone thing, he's in some of those videos. That's how much of a personality he is. And he goes by the name of Regis Kilbin, like the old Regis that used to be on Regis and Kathy Lee.
And he is very entertaining. He's super engaging.
He's one of the funniest streamers out there because, I mean, he just has a great personality, lovable kind of guy, but then he's hilarious. And what he wants to do as far as in games is play, number one, enjoy himself. And you could tell he's just having fun all the time. But he wants to play with decks, you know, of cards that do something fun and funny, you know, as far as the thing goes. And as I had logged on that day and I was playing a couple of games before I played this one. And then probably 2 or 3 turns into this specific game, you can see who you're playing. And sometimes I look, but you never look. And I see it says Regis Kilbin, and I'm like, no way. That can't really be him. So I was like, let me check on Twitch just to see.
On his Twitch stream.
Just to see, like, is this really this guy? Because, you know, anybody can name themselves whatever, you know, on these things.
Yeah.
And I look on there and I'm like, oh my God, I'm on there. But I didn't want to be a big fat cheater. So, because you can see basically their hand,
you know,
his deck. So I closed it out and I'm like, I'm actually playing this guy. And it's so awesome. And what you can tell is the game it ends up being the most ridiculous game, back and forth, just insane things that happen. And I can tell.
Had him.
Yeah, I had him for sure. And then he pulls this like ridiculous stuff out and he ends up beating me. And I knew right there when he beat me, I'm like, this is going to go for sure on his YouTube channel because he's probably laughing so hard right now that this all happened. So I jumped back onto his Twitch stream and I told him, hey, good game. You know, it was super fun playing you. And he's like, oh.
And I like that you texted me too. You're like,
yeah. I just played this guy. And then I didn't know if he really would post. You know, these guys are super busy, and he picks out basically the best games for entertainment purposes. That's what these are. You know, it's for anybody that's watching on YouTube. You're going to watch something that'll make you laugh or let you have fun. And so he put it a part of the stream. So it's funny to my son Lysander and I watched it, and even my son was laughing. He was like, God, this guy's really entertaining. So yeah, no, it was super fun and kind of surreal.
I don't remember. It was awesome. I enjoyed the YouTube video. It was great. It was a fun game to watch. And I thought you had him. Like, I thought, is that the one where you had him down to like 2, right?
Yes.
And then he got a plus, and then he got a plus 15 or something like that.
Yes.
To heal himself or something. Just crazy. Like, I thought, oh my God, I knew you lost because you told me already that you had lost. But I was like, how could he possibly have lost?
Lose this game. I know, that's what it was. It was like that.
It was so crazy. But I was curious, have you watched him very much, like on Twitch?
Yep, he's one of my favorite guys.
Or anything like that?
Nope, family friendly. He never swears. He actually does it. He's a super. He boots out all toxic, kind of, commentate, people that are going into stream or whatever it might be. So he wants it to just be totally for fun and entertainment and whatever. And he laughs at himself too, because he says that he's terrible. He's really not terrible. He's playing a lot of times terrible decks on purpose to see if he could actually pull off these insane combos that are impossible or whatever it might be. So super fun.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so what's his Twitch name again?
Regis Kilbin, just like the Regis,
Kilbin. So instead of Phil, it's Kill.
Yeah. Nice. Regis Kilbin. And I'm not exactly sure if his real name is Regis. Probably not. Who knows? These guys come up with some funny things, funny intros and funny, personalities that they take on.
Well, it was very, very cool. Yeah, how you making out over there in Minnesota? Are you
we're doing?
You safe? You healthy?
Yeah, everything's going really well. Thank God for all that as far as health wise and everything else. I just decided this week could have still gone into school because I was going in last week, just really prepping for the teachers, really having meetings and developing content materials, training stuff, basically for all the teachers to get them ready for distance learning. And I was going to go in today and I'm like, you know what? That's it. I don't want to take unnecessary risks. If we can avoid, basically, being exposed to the virus, then man, that would be great. I have my in-laws here in my house. They came over because it's my kids' spring break this week. So that was their intention anyway. So I'm glad that they're here, obviously, because it's super awesome. My kids, they couldn't be happier as far as having their grandparents here. And we've had beautiful days. Like I told you, there's something weird happening, Mike. I think maybe this is going to be, in the end, it's going to be something positive. Of course, it's super negative because there's people that are sick and a lot of people are dying. But once we can get past all of this, I think there's going to be some positive things that are going to happen, the way that we change our lives, our lifestyle, and what we think
I hope so.
How we are able to appreciate things, number one, as far as our families and those types of things, but then kind of rethinking things like we've talked about, like rethinking school and what is the potential, like kind of what can we actually do? Do we have to do this? You describe it all the time as far as this antiquated system of learning that was developed. What was that
does
for
this
the
give me
agrarian,
the chance to say the Prussian school system?
Yeah, the Prussian school system with the agrarian.
That's so great. The agrarian calendar.
There you go. I just
Look
want to make
us.
sure. Yeah,
I love it when we
I'm just quoting you. I was just hoping to remember it correctly. But basically rethinking all of those things and really taking the positives in and saying, okay, what can we do? And I've seen outside as we go for walks. I go for walks now 2 or 3 times a day with my wife. First of all, that's freaking phenomenal.
Right.
That never happened before. And
on walks all the time too.
And I'm seeing people outside, like enjoying it, like going, hey, we can go outside with their kids, with themselves. They're going for walks or whatever it might be. Of course, we keep a 6-foot distance from each other, so that's awkward.
Yeah, listen, hot tip, friends. When you're walking on a sidewalk and you see other people coming at you on the sidewalk, listen, if you haven't done the math yet, the sidewalk is like the perfect distance of width apart, for you to, like, if you go on one side of the grass and then the other people go on the other side of the grass,
you're okay,
you're
right?
about the right distance apart. So listen,
no need to go to the other side of the road.
Ranting. People, well, you don't have to go to the other side of the road. You just go on the other side of the damn sidewalk. So I had people that were like, now I'm just ranting. I'm like, get off my lawn, right?
They were getting too close.
They're just like, I go over to the grass and you go over to the grass and we're all happy. Come on, can we just all be happy? Like, we got a lot going on here, man. I just don't want to die. That's all. I mean, can you just walk on the grass so
you
I
were
don't
telling
die?
me too that if you, like, this is a real thing, and I've heard it from other people too, that when you feel like you have a runny nose or a little bit of a fever, or you feel a little bit sick, it's really easy to think like, oh gosh, I could actually, I could have it. It's really freaky, in that way.
I've broken a sweat a couple times this week, and I'm like, damn, I have the Rona. And I'm like,
you posted that.
Yeah, and then I'm like, I calm down, and everything is cool, but it's like, in all seriousness, I was serious about like that idea that like if you're a person who suffers from like depression or anxiety or PSD, or not PSD,
PTSD. Yep.
No, OCD. Sorry, is what I'm actually thinking of.
Yeah.
Like these would be conditions that would like set you off, yourself on. You would go crazy. I imagine some people are and not coping with this well at all.
Yes.
So again, just a reminder, like if you're listening to that and you're one of those people and you just need someone to talk to you about how much I hate cats and how good certain candies are, I mean, slide into our and the best dips to eat with chips. I'm your guy for that. If you need to talk about anything other than how messed up, our world is right now, like I can help you with that. So like slide into the DMs and let's just talk about stupid nonsense.
Yeah. So your wife is also home and is a kindergarten teacher, and your kids are home, obviously, and you guys just went into full
lockdown, starting
lockdown mode, right?
Yeah,
so basically,
so
only essential leaving your home. So groceries.
That's right. So we found out today at like 2:00.
Yeah,
I was streaming with Steve, and I muted. My wife came in the door and said they were about to announce this secure in place.
Yeah.
And I said, "Do you know when?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Well, I'm streaming till 4." And then we were like, "We'll go get groceries at 4." So I stopped the stream. I said, I gotta go. I gotta go get some food and make sure I got enough food for 2 weeks. Because I don't want to really go anywhere, to be perfectly honest, other than the walks around the neighborhood. So this was the first time I'd been in public in a week. Like I went to the hospital. I went to the hospital last week.
Oh yeah, because you got really sick.
I got sick and had to go to the hospital. And when
that's scary.
Yeah, well, I mean, the doctor
that's the place
said,
you don't want to go to.
Right. Well, the doctor said, the nice thing about, I shouldn't say the nice. He said the thing about what's happening now is that you're not getting people coming to emergency for no reason. Like, you have to be crazy to go to emergency for no reason right now. So you're sick if you're there. And so I was there, and not feeling very well at all. But that's like the last time I was in the midst of other people until today when we went to the grocery store. So we went to the grocery store, dropped a couple $100 in groceries. So we're good. We got lots of food. And I'm working like crazy. So nothing changes in terms of like work. Cheryl's doing an awesome job at, keeping the boys kind of occupied. She bought some craft supplies. She went to the dollar store and bought a whole bunch of, kindergarten teachers, right? I mean, just doing what they do, just crushing it. Primary teachers kick ass. Like they're seriously they're so good at their jobs. Like seriously, primary teachers are the best. I can't get enough of it. I'm serious. And so she did what probably tons of primary teachers are like nodding their heads going, yeah, I went to the dollar store too. Because that's what they do. And so, it's their dollar store's primary demographic is primary
elementary teachers. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's like it's all their budget. Their, a pie chart of a budget for a dollar store is like 75% primary teachers. But so she bought a whole bunch of stuff, and we've been going on walks, so she'll like come up in the morning and say, when's your meetings? When can we put in an hour for a walk? And so I like literally put it in my calendar, or someone's going to book a stupid meeting. Not a stupid meeting. They're all important meetings. Someone's going to book a meeting. I have people I work with that listen now, so I can't say stupid meeting. Hi, Mark.
Sometimes a meeting can be just non-essential, let's call it.
None of the meetings right now are non-essential. I mean, lots of the I'll tell you, one of those funny memes that's coming up, right, is that little meme about, all of those meetings that we had could have been emails.
Yeah.
They really could have been, and we're learning that now. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. So,
So you're doing well then.
Well, listen, I rearranged the office. It looks fantastic. It's so much more comfortable in here now. I have a lot more space, and I have all the candy is right there, and I can just like reach for the candy and get it, and I don't even have to get off my ass to do it. So, I mean, we're okay. I think we're going to be okay.
Need in
Right.
The candy's within reach.
The PlayStation 4 is right there.
Yep.
I have my laptop right here. The TV, literally, I can turn the TV there. I'm touching the TV.
Mm-hmm.
I can turn the TV on from my sitting at my desk chair. So, you know, I have a whole bunch of sympathy and empathy for people who are not as lucky as I am, and I think you are.
Yes.
And especially thinking about, I'm glad that so many school districts are handling the food thing. I think that there was a real call to arms there. You know, that I was like super concerned about this. But it looks like a lot of these other school districts and superintendents and people like leaders were thinking about it too, you know, and stepping up for that. I think that there's going to be some really interesting conversations, and I'm actually writing a blog post today and tomorrow about what's after this, what happens after Rona. You know, when people go back to school, but inevitably, like, I think we need to start thinking also now that like the craziness has settled, like it's a little less psycho now than it was a week and a half ago. You know, and now we need to start thinking about what happens when we go back, but then this inevitably like, cause there's a good chance this is the coronavirus is going to come back in the fall. Like, there's a pretty good chance of that happening. A lot of people are talking about that. And then, you know, what happens when the next one happens? Because these, like, it was like SARS happened before. And, like, but if any of these other, like, hyper contagious viruses get out, I mean, we got to think about these things and we got to think about the future. And I think that I'm thinking a lot about that. And I'm thinking about how, like, even, like, not to plug, but, like, Participate is thinking a lot about that in particular, because we're in a good position to help with stuff like this. So we're thinking a lot about these things and talking about not what happens now, because, you know, now is happening now, and you just, you know,
you just do what you
can't just like flip a switch and turn things on, right? Like, I mean, it just doesn't work like that. Like, we preach that, right? That you can't just like throw things at teachers and say, okay, you're doing this now. But like, what happens in a year from now if it happens again? Who's ready then, and what have we learned? What have we learned that we can take to the next thing? I think that's what you're talking about too. Yeah. That there's a huge opportunity here, right?
Big time.
Like, and you guys have got to be. Sorry?
No, there is a huge opportunity. I totally agree.
Yeah. So hopefully you guys, like, your team is thinking about, like, you know, what's permanent of this? What's permanent of these solutions, right? Yeah. Because those are the things that I would love people to start thinking about, is what we're throwing spaghetti against the wall right now, right? Right? And you're just waiting to see what sticks. But, you know, what's permanent here? What can we take and say, yeah, this really worked? Like, I don't mind throw out a bunch of stuff, like, after this passes, you know, but hopefully you find some things that stick.
What I'm interested in too, Mike, is we know about some best practices, better practices of online distance learning, e-learning, whatever you want to go ahead and call it. But that has always been in situations where there was almost a choice from the recipient and the educator. Let's go. You chose to be an educator in that setting, you know, and probably receive training and so on and so forth. But on the other end, that's the part that I'm really interested in seeing what's going to happen here, is the students that choose to do online learning do it for specific reasons, and they are making a conscious choice to engage, for example, in those materials and really basically say, yeah, I actually want to do my education in this way. In this situation, the interesting part will be, what is the students' take of all of this? You know what I mean? Is it going to be like, I've read some articles from some students in China and Japan and Korea where there were some students who hated certain things of aspects, which I don't blame them, as far as how they were being educated in this online setting. And what things are they going to maybe come back with and go, hey, I really like these things, the flexibility, the ability to do this. I enjoyed that I could engage in the materials when I was ready to engage in them, those kinds of things. And that's part two is we really need to listen to our audience, which is our students, and find out for them in the end, like you just said, this spaghetti that we're throwing against the wall, what it is really taking with them and helping them to learn, and in their own time, with their own time and their own, giving them an opportunity to master the right skills, engage them with the materials there, even though it's not a face-to-face setting. All of those things I'm really interested in seeing, kind of an overall picture, a meta picture of what has happened throughout the world, and say, what can we take from these lessons, and then apply them to just education in general. Stop saying it's just distance learning or e-learning. It's part of learning. We can now take these concepts away. So I'm excited about that portion too. And like you just said, there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot of lessons that are going to be still taught here, and God knows how long this is going to go.
It's an interesting world. And I respect some of the educators that I've talked to and that we're friends with that have said, don't use the word opportunity in this, and I get that frame of mind that we shouldn't we should be
totally
thinking about it, but I would love to know what other word I'm supposed to use. It's almost like a semantics thing. I just hope we remember the smart things that we did during this time, and that we think about how we can take those smart things and carry them forward.
Totally agree.
And I I'm fine if you don't want me to use the word opportunity. Just tell me what other word to use that turns this hellscape we're in into an opportunity, or into a positive. A positive, because that's what that's the outcome we need here, is that we do have this chance to remake some of the way we think about how we deliver education to kids, and in spite of everything that's happening, we can be thinking about that at the same time, and hopefully making some meaningful action. When we come back, we're just thrilled to have
this guy,
great friend of the podcast, next, Andy Leiser. So stay with us.
OnEducation is brought to you by Fidgets. Fidgets are interactive USB sensors that bring your code to life. There's no soldering or wiring required. Simply plug in a Fidget sensor, write code in your favorite language, and watch your ideas come alive. Fidgets are used by thousands of STEM professionals globally, and are now available for computer science students. Simply go to bit.ly Fidgets on Education to get your introductory kit that includes a free sensor worth over $50. That's bit.ly Fidgets on Education.
All right, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Andy Leiser is with us. He's an elementary integration specialist in Hastings, Minnesota, someone we've wanted on the podcast for far too long, and we've hung out with him many times while we've had the podcast on, and said every time, we should have you on the podcast, and it never ended up happening. So here we are. Welcome to OnEducation, Mr. Leiser.
Pleased to be here. Thanks for having me.
You could sound more excited.
I am just beyond thrilled to be here, guys. Oh my gosh, okay.
Me too. So
how was that? Was that too much?
No, that was dead on. That was perfect.
That was
exactly
you nailed it. What we needed.
Yeah, exactly. So for anyone who doesn't know who you are, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, give us a bit of your background, all that jazz.
You bet. So grew up, Andy Leiser, grew up in southeastern Wisconsin. Went to college in northern Minnesota, and then moved to California for 10 years teaching upper elementary in the Bay Area. Shout out to Benicia Unified School District, East Bay. Anyway, we were out there for 10 years, married my wife, and my then girlfriend, fiance, got married, had two kids, realized, oh my gosh, 4 plane tickets to get back to see family here was just too much. So after teaching 4th and 5th grade for 10 years out there, came back and the perfect situation in Hastings, a role that was it felt tailor-made to my skill set. It was located right where we wanted to be. At the time, we didn't really want to be teaching in Wisconsin, where our family was. And so southeast of the Twin Cities is where we are, and it's perfect. We can get to see family when we want to. And and I was able to run with kind of what really excited me were those ways that in the classroom we were integrating technology in really meaningful and fun ways for the kids. Mm-hmm. And that was sort of just a sliver of what I was able to do in California. And it was growing, certainly. But that became what I do all the time, like with a whole bunch of people and grade levels. So in that way, it was a match. Yeah, it was a good match.
That's awesome. So, we talked a little bit off air about how crazy things are right now. It's pretty wild, kind of everywhere. Ontario actually, effective tomorrow. This is tonight's Monday night. Effective tomorrow is shelter in place as of tomorrow. It's pretty crazy everywhere. So tell us a little bit about what's it like where you're at in Hastings, and what is your school district doing? Give us kind of a general rundown on your specific situation. I guess it'd be interesting to hear.
It's been, this last week was our spring break, and my family had a trip planned for Boston. We were going to head out there. I'd never been, couldn't wait to see Freedom Trail and see all the places I'd taught about, right, as a fifth grade teacher, but that didn't end up working out, and for the best. So we were here, home, found myself instantly available for the sort of last minute. And granted, we had the best situation where we got to make these decisions during spring break. We got to kind of get the ball rolling when we didn't have kids, and we didn't have to say go home. Like, we just didn't have kids. And so we met collectively using Zoom a lot to kind of get things in place. And our leadership has followed, the Governor Walz's direction to a T. When what he says goes, and that's just kind of how it works here. But at the same time, I'm very fortunate to work in a district that knows that family comes first, and will extend a great deal of grace if you feel like, being home with my kids is what is best for us. And so even today, when it was sort of a mandatory report day, we did have quite a few folks who were remoting in from home with their kids. You can see them in the background. It's pretty cute. Mm-hmm. Our response has been, all right, we're going to use this week. Kids, no school, please don't report. We're going to use this week to get ready for distance learning, which will commence on this coming Monday, the 30th. And we have no idea how long it's going to go. But we have sort of a trajectory now. It's not this big scatter, whatever you want. It's no, we're going to hone this in. We're going to come up with, what we believe is going to be the best use of all of our resources, including home, to make the most of what, could really go one of two ways.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of home, how is your family? How's everything doing on the home front? You guys honestly, hanging in there?
Yeah, they're good. I've got a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old, 4th grade and kindergarten, and they're upstairs right now. I'm actually surprised they haven't come barreling down the stairs, but they're good. We go through the swings like most siblings do during the day, where they are the best of friends and then they are the worst of enemies. And it kind of comes with the territory. We try to be as much proactive as we can be, get outside, play. They usually realize that when we make a suggestion, even if they don't like it at first, after about 30 seconds, it winds up being like the best thing. And they're so excited about it. Like baths.
Yes.
Oh, no. Oh, wait, this is kind of awesome. It's warm. Nobody's bothering me. This is great. Stuff like that. Go outside and play. Oh, no. And then we don't see them for 45 minutes as they're having a blast outside building stick forts and stuff. So we try really, really hard in our house. And I think that's important kind of across the board to really honor the balance. It'd be easy. My kids have iPads. They do. We got them new ones just a couple weeks ago. Perfect timing, actually. Yeah. But we really do try to find that balance on screens, on not screens, on physical building, on, problem solving, getting outside. It's It's not perfect. We're far from perfect, but it's definitely not a pacifier. Technology is. It's a very purposeful thing that we try to incorporate in my house, and that kind of translates over to what we do at school, which is, hey, look, if we're going to use this, we're going to do this the best way possible. We're going to learn an awful lot, and then we're going to be better.
Imagine this happened in January.
Oh, gosh, I'm so glad.
Especially in Minnesota. Glenn, how cold was it in Minnesota in January? Was it cold, or it was just a in snow, right? In January?
Cold. It's really
like when you've been able to go outside.
You were there in December.
Oh, right.
Yeah. It's that cold and sometimes colder than that. Yeah, it's brutal. Oh. I was thinking, Andy, that I really like your posts that you use on social media that have to do with your family, and then intentionally using technology for small moments for specific activities. And I think that that's an important thing for us to be able to see that as parents. And obviously we're as parents, we're now at home, we're doing that part too. And as educators, to see, you don't what you just finished telling us is exactly right. You don't have to go one extreme or the other. You can use it for a purposeful thing and then move on to a non-digital, whatever it might be, as far as an activity or whatever it might be. Speaking about that, Governor Walz put to us the task to get ready for distance learning, right? That was an interesting phrasing, I thought, and actually really purposeful. Instead of saying e-learning or remote learning, as we've seen, as far as those hashtags. And they even defined distance learning for us, that it didn't necessarily need to be technology related. What did you think about that, as far as as I saw that as a specific statement, and I haven't seen it in too many other states. I thought that was a really
smart,
interesting and smart move by the whole
nuance
educational, Minnesota Education Department.
Sure. No, it helps that our governor was as an educator. That's a huge bonus. And kind of to tack onto that, one of the things, our administration has really clung to was they have consistently talked about the equity piece. And I think that plays a big role in, what can or should be digital and what we need to be realistic about in our homes. We did a survey a couple years ago in Hastings, and I believe it came back that 95% of our families were connected at home, which is pretty decent. It's not everybody. Since then we've used some money to purchase some of those Kajits and check out Chromebooks or whatever it may be. And then we spent the good deal of today, calling families and finding out, hey, how you doing? What do you need? What's your level of connectivity? Do you need a device that we could perhaps supply to you?
Awesome. And
we also are going to head into this next week with, I think, a pretty darn balanced plan. We're at the elementary level, we're using Seesaw to drive the digital component. But our next week's plan isn't really reliant on that at all. And parents will have the ability to opt out, say, no, it's not for us. So we'll be supplying something else that meets those same standards. What I'm really proud about, though, if I can kind of, bring it back, and I'll get back to the Governor Walz saying, hey, it doesn't have to all be digital. One of the things I'm really, really proud of is, we have been using Seesaw for 5 years, basically right after it began. And this is the first year that we're, using this paid version of it. And for 5 years, some of our teachers have been slowly, kind of boosting their skills.
Yes.
Well, in the past week, I have helped a lot of people kind of do a crash course boost, and not they didn't push back at all. This was them actively seeking out, hey, I know this is going to be how I can strengthen connections to my students, how I can give them some face time so they can see my face, hear my voice. I can look them in the eye through video, but keep and maintain that connection and check in a truly authentic way. As far as I know, viruses don't go through screens. And so this is truly the absolute best thing in terms of being able to teach and guide learning. Yes. Worksheets aren't going to do that. You can't drop a packet of worksheets on someone and that's going to propel them forward. It might give them some practice on some skills, But for most people, especially our youngest learners, they need to see you. They need to hear you. They need you to push them and challenge them in a way that only you know how to do. And I'll tell you what, that's not going to come across in paper. So yes, the governor was very intentional with making sure that that balance piece is there. It's not all digital. But I'm thankful we have those tools in place, and we have people who are willing to test and try and push and use those things, because that's going to offer as much normalcy as we can possibly provide our kids in this time. A familiar face and a smile checking in. Hey, Billy, how you doing? I noticed you posted yesterday. I was really proud of what you shared. That right there, that's what it's all about. The academic stuff, we'll get to that. But let's make sure we're building from a place that we're confident in our solid, positive relationship. So
you already mentioned your basically like a learning management system, a communication system, let's call it Seesaw, which we are big fans of. We actually had Angela Gadke on. I love Angela. I know she's amazing. She's, again, another Minnesotan on the show one time. I just had a little microphone and recorded her, and she now works for Seesaw. What are your other go-to tools, Andy, for those that are people that are listening and they're elementary teachers? Yeah. And I think right now is a time when I think there's an overblasting of tools to people. Gosh. And because everything is now free, I think a lot of people are just, they're in the potpourri mood. They're going to try, actually, better say a buffet. There you go. I'm going to go to the buffet.
Smorgasbord.
And I'm going to just eat everything, even if it's not that good. Because I paid $12.99 for this. In this case, it's free. I'm going to just eat it all. And then whatever happens in the end. Probably not that good of a strategy, number one.
No, we're going to feel bloated and miserable come next year when, I got to pay for all that now?
Yeah.
Yes. Gross. Yes. And sometimes, too, some of these tools are just, they're not the best. Let's just say, whatever it might be. They're not. No. And they don't fit specific situations that they could be used for, yet they're being used for other things. Let's just put it that way. So in your case, you talked about Seesaw. What are some other go-to tools for teaching and learning? Let's just say learning online.
Especially that K to 4 range, which is you, because that's the range that's being ignored in a lot of cases right now, I think, too. They're really, a lot of these people are honing in on like that 5, 6, 7, and 8 range, and then high school. But I mean, there's a whole bunch of kids in K to 4 that, what do we do for them?
One of the things, at least here in Hastings, that we're really being smart about is, just because everything is now free for a little while, doesn't mean those resources that we have already vetted over the years and now and pay subscription money to, doesn't mean those stop working. Those are our district approved resources, and those still do come first. And you know what? Our kids will be excited to use that same thing in a new setting at home. In fact, they might be more excited to show mom or dad, hey, or grandma or grandpa, whoever it may be, hey, this is what we do at school. Let me talk to you about this. And instantly we got that connection. We've got some questions being answered and some interest back in there. So kind of in that spirit, in Hastings, we use Raz Kids quite a bit. It's a paid subscription. It's not cheap, but it's really helpful in the primary grades. Sort of, and I don't want to say, I don't know how to say this the right way, so I'm sure I'm going to say it wrong. But like,
go ahead and say it.
You don't want to have you don't want kids to be a letter or a number, but there are levels in reading through which you progress, right? Mm-hmm. And there are tailor-made books collected in certain numbers or letters or categories, right? That kids can safely choose on their own a book that is right for them. Mm. And there's a lot that we're not doing with Raz Kids that you could be doing. I think it's fabulous. But kind of as a 1-2 punch, one of the things a lot of our teachers use kind of on the side at school is Epic. Epic Reads get Epic books.
My little son came home and said, we need to download this app called Epic. I use it at school. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. What is this?
So Tell me more about that. Epic's kind of awesome. So Epic it is totally epic. It's it's very much like Raz Kids, where we have digital books that you can page through. Some of them are read to you. They're high interest. They're big name books. So Raz Kids can kind of have some sort of generic kind of titles. They are very good at teaching skills and for getting kids reading. But they also don't snag in like Big Nate and, a whole ton of graphic novels. Whereas Epic really does pull in kind of the name brand books and titles. There are videos in Epic. And I always make sure to make a point to tell teachers, yes, there are videos in here. You know your students, you know their needs, you know what they need at this moment. In your settings, there's a switch to toggle that off or toggle that on, but know about that and use that. But what I like about Epic right now is it's kind of they build themselves as like the Netflix of books, right? Where at school, teachers can access and kids can access all these books for free. But, oh, hey, parents, if you want to pay $4 a month, you can have access to all this at home. And that's kind of how they pay their bills. And it's actually a pretty sweet deal. We've done it for a little bit. But from now till the end of the year, if the teacher's been using Epic in the classroom, they can send that code home and parents can connect. In fact, we did it tonight. We connected our 2 kids. And so then they can have all those resources at home, which, hey, reading on paper is great. Digital e-readers, fine. Are they reading? Yes. That's what we really want. And I do like Epic for that.
That's awesome.
Another one that we use that I super love, and I will purposefully not say one that it replaced, but I'll describe the one that it replaced as teacher-controlled digital worksheets. Okay. And so we're like, we don't really like teacher-controlled digital worksheets. Oh, I see it spits out exactly where your kids are. That's really handy for you. Have you watched what they're doing? Because it's miserable. It's test prep. So we got rid of teacher assigned digital worksheets. Okay. And we paid for a subscription for all of our students for Dreambox. Are you familiar with Dreambox?
I'm not.
No, I'm not trying to drop news. I don't know how this works, and I don't speak for anything. Right?
Drop everything you want.
We charge every one of these companies after you're off the podcast.
This is actually part of the monetization process of OnEducation.
This is our funding strategy.
Continue to drop names, please. The revenue stream is skyrocketing right now. So Dreambox, tell us more about Dreambox.
Here's the deal with Dreambox. Dreambox is anything but drill and kill, which our previous service was.
Yes.
Dreambox is incredibly experiential in that the kids are using some of those same physical and digital tools that they see in their classrooms. I'm talking about like number racks and this sort of stuff, or rec and recs, whatever you want to call them. Number racks is what we call them. And they are exploring this world. They're going through different challenges. Yes, their skills kind of get honed and then they go down different paths sort of within. I won't call it gamification because it isn't gamification as I believe gamification to be. It's not like Prodigy. Okay. Prodigy to me, and I do love Prodigy, but Prodigy to me feels like 75% exploring a world and interacting with it. And then like 25% math.
Yep.
Right. This is about the inverse of that. In fact, I'd say it's probably more like 85% exploring math concepts and trying. And then, you can customize your avatar because you've earned the credits to do so by, you're up leveling your skills. And there's sort of a super primary version of it, which are kindergartners and first graders. And then I believe in second grade, it kind of moves on into a more older kid friendly interface. Like my daughter today asked for it. She must have been on there for almost an hour, absolutely loving what she was doing. It hit all the grade level standards. If she was making some mistakes again and again on a certain concept, they would kind of feed a few more of those in there. It was very motivating. It's a wonderful resource, and it beats the pants off of some of the
other competition.
Some of the competition. I don't know anything.
You need to name them too. I mean, no, I'm joking.
I can't do that. I just can't.
I'm thinking about companies I'm in right now as far as what you're describing and how some people adopted technology, Andy, I think, really quickly because they immediately substituted the bad practices that they had previously with digital bad practices that they that a company sold them, that because a company is making money off of it, and they obviously have published this and there's a site and et cetera, and it's producing
textbook companies.
And it's giving me results, like I can see a stream of whatever my not results as far as learning, data points. There you go. That's what I want to say.
You mean making kids numbers? Yeah. Yes. Kids numbers is great.
Yeah. And they immediately adopted those things and were like, "Oh, I'm a high-tech teacher. I'm doing a good job here." And it's hard to break people of those things. And I'm thinking of things like I'm going to name things. You don't have to agree with it. Like no red ink is one of them that I think is overused, especially at the middle school level. And talk about drill and kill. It really is super punishing. It's to students as far as the way that it games the learning. Let's call it that way. And by punishing, I mean you have to start over on all of these different concepts from the beginning. And so the time factor that students have to do on a specific lesson is completely determined by the student's initial skill level at that thing. So it's really horrible for kids that already are struggling with school. And then you put this thing in front of them and it's just drilling them. And of course they're just like, I just want to throw this thing away, or I want to cheat. Sure. I want to cheat my way around it, find the way to just get through this, Yeah. So really happy that you're naming off tools that take a different route.
They do. And granted, everything that I've mentioned, it's a paid resource and there's not always funds for everybody. But I hope that if you hear one of those, that you check it out, you take it to one of your decision makers and say, hey, look, we should really consider this, because bang for your dollar. I think these, some of the resources I mentioned really do a fantastic job keeping learning real and fun for kids. And if it's learning fun and it's real and it's applicable, we're going to go a whole lot further.
So, Andy, what are 3 pieces of... I'm super interested in your answer to this question. Hopefully you've been listening. You're ready for this. Yeah, buddy. What are 3 pieces of media? They can be a video. They can be a book. They can be a TV show. They can be a song, whatever. 3 pieces of media that have influenced your thinking. Right now, they do not have to be virus-themed at all, though they can, and that would add a whole level of adventure to our discussion. What are 3 pieces of media that have influenced you, made you who you are today? Give them to us.
All right, so first of all, I'm going to go with 2 really big throwbacks for my first 2, and then I'm going to use this time to talk about them and hopefully come up with my third. But my first one, I'm going to throw it all the way back to Mr. Ambrosius. He was my 6th grade reading teacher. Okay. I remember a couple of things from his class. One, I totally forgot an assignment and I scraped an illustration together on a book summary using highlighters. And at the bottom, I wrote, "It's modern art." So that it was just my excuse to make a reason why it looked so terrible. Like, it's modern art. Made it with highlighters, man. Anyway, I remember that. And I remember, that we read what has to this day become my all-time favorite book, which is The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin. I believe it was a Newbery winner in 77. So it's old, and I know there's tons of great new books, but this one just resonated with me because it hit me at the absolute right time. So my all-time favorite book I discovered in 6th grade, the projects and the way he made that book an experience I didn't know was laying some of the groundwork for how I would treat reading. And it took, here's my second one. It took until my junior year at the University of Minnesota, Duluth. And I was in my elementary reading class. Dr. Jean Stevenson, she just retired. And I remember showing up for her class on reading instruction. I don't remember what I was reading. And all the desks were pushed off in this dirty classroom in Montague Hall at UMD, all pushed off the side, just gross linoleum. And she's, by the way, she's about this big. You fit in your pocket. She's tiny. And she's sitting on the floor with a stack of like picture books, right? And in walk these, 21, 22-year-old college kids. And she's like, okay, everybody take a seat. We're going to sit in a big circle. I'm going to share some picture books with you today. And we're like, yeah, right. No, really, seriously, what are we doing? And no, for sure. We all sat down on that gross, dusty floor and she read us books. But here's the thing. She read books with such passion and she used different voices and she got in and she really altered the cadence and how she delivered things and what was fast and what was slow and what was really thoughtful. And her pauses were intentional. And it just was so, I knew in the moment that something was happening. And I do remember looking around at some of the other people kind of in the class, which I'm still in touch with, which is really cool. Thanks, Facebook. But anyway, I remember looking around and marveling at the fact that this teacher, this professor, had 30 early 20s students sitting on a gross, dusty floor listening to picture books and completely engaged and enthralled in the stories. It was awesome. And I knew, all right, first of all, I'm going to be reading every single day to my students. And we'll probably read longer than most classes. And I'm going to do it in the way Gene Stevenson did because holy smokes, that's memorable. And that's one of the things that, you still stay in touch with some students. And that's one of the things that they remember and love most were read aloud times and making stories and voices and all that business. That's one of my absolute favorite things to do. And then, all right, I'm going to go even earlier than all that. Ooh. All right.
Old school.
I'm super old school, and I'm going to try to tie this. Some of you who have heard me speak in different places may have heard this story before, but it's worth sharing. And actually, I have a relevant tie into about 2 weeks ago. So first grade, 1987, 1988, Washington Elementary School in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. Right? I have a picture of myself as an 8-year-old boy standing with all the rest of the boys in my class. Because my teacher, Norma Schlicker, purposefully took time to capture moments in her classroom. Okay? She took old school film camera pictures. Okay? The kind that you have to wait till the whole roll is filled. You have to send them off to be developed. You have to wait 2 weeks to get them back just to see if they even turned out, right? Mm-hmm. So here's what's special about that. And here's what has pushed me a little bit to share the way I do and how I do on social media and with what we do in Hastings. She held on to photos of everyone in my class. She kept them organized. She maintained our addresses so that when we graduated high school 11 years later, we got a handwritten note with a stack of pictures from when we were in first grade. And here's why I love that. We weren't ready to appreciate those experiences as a first grade. We weren't ready to appreciate those experiences, those moments when we were in middle school. But you know what? When you're, 18 or about to be 18, you've just graduated high school and you get a stack of photos that take you back to a time that you have very little recollection of. That's amazing. That absolutely. I can tell you where I was standing on the planet. I can tell you what the sun, the sky, the clouds, the smells. Somebody had mowed their grass. Like that moment is ingrained in me because she had taken the time to do this. And now here's the kicker. All right. She died 3 months before I graduated high school. And it was her husband that carried that out for her. And so the note that I got when I read it said, your first grade teacher, Norma, had passed away 3 months earlier. She wanted you to have these. And it just, it's why I share what I do, because it's so easy for me to do that with permission, honoring all of the parent privacy requests I always ask. But it's why I take pictures of what we do, because it's important. And even if the kids don't realize it right now, their families do. Our community does. And we need to show all the good that's going on. And just to kind of bring it back to a couple weeks ago, I got an email from Norma Schlicker's granddaughter who had stumbled upon, I have a blog post about this, a legacy to emulate. It's on Medium. And she discovered it and reached out to me and sent me just the nicest email. I wrote back and just said, hey, look, when something that important, when something that meaningful happens and it hits you at the absolute right time, I didn't know I was going to be an elementary school teacher, but I can tell you that did a good nudge in that direction for me. But the importance of sharing moments, the importance of strengthening those relationships, of celebrating what's good, that's what that was. And then came the love of really cool books and awesome teaching style. And so, maybe you expected me to drop some like albums or movies or whatever, but I'm going throwback media here. I'm going old school printed photos and textbook or novel books in sixth grade. But
we love it.
Anyway, I would say those are super meaningful. To this day, it's my favorite. In fact, it will be because of this time that we're out of the classroom that I share the Weston game with my daughter for the first time. So I'm super pumped to read that to her.
Oh, that's fantastic, man. So people out there, Andy, they want to be able to connect with you, learn more about you. What's the best way to connect?
You can find me on Twitter at Andy Leiser. It's just my name. Nothing says you more than your name. And then on Instagram, because I'm still trying to get my Andy Leiser back. It's Andy Leiser EDU.
Okay.
Just professionally. You can find, I'm on Facebook. I will post things on Facebook publicly for things that I think are like good reference for professional growth. But, just kind of how I look at it, Facebook is super personal. Instagram's even more personal, except for my professional one. But Twitter's the best way to get a hold of me. And from there we can see where things go.
Very cool. Andy Leiser, thank you so much, man.
Pleasure to hang with you guys anytime.
Thanks for listening to OnEducation. My name is Glenn Irvin. My co-host is Mike Washburn. OnEducation is part of the On Podcast Media Network. You can listen to this show and many others by great educators like Monica Burns, Mike Matera, Tisha Richmond, and many more by visiting onpodcastmedia.com. Want to get in touch with us? Check out our website at oneducationpodcast.com. You can tweet us at OnEducationPod. Mike is at Mr. Washburn on Twitter, and I can be found on Twitter at IrvSpanish. You can find us on Facebook by visiting facebook.com/OnEducationPod. We're also on Instagram at OnEducationPod. Want to support OnEducation? Visit our Patreon site at patreon.com/OnEducation. There, you can get access to full videos of the podcast and so much more. If you're enjoying the show and think others would too, we would be thrilled if you shared it with them. Please leave us a rating or a review in Apple Podcasts or the Google Play Store. When you leave a rating, it gives our rankings a boost. It helps others discover the show. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Classcraft, for supporting us. Check out classcraft.com/OnEducation to learn more about them. Thanks as always for listening, stay awesome, and see you soon.